Today's episode is brought to you by Abbyconnect. Is working remotely the new normal? Well, if you're still using an answering machine or letting people go to voicemail, you are missing opportunities. And did you know that 85% of callers who reach a voicemail will actually hang up and get frustrated? So no matter your circumstance, your customer experience directly affects your sales and top-line revenue that we talk about here at the Abundant Accountant podcast all the time. So if you're looking to improve your business without having to bring on a full-time receptionist and prefer doing business with people versus voicemails, then make sure to check out Abbyconnect. Abbyconnect is here to improve your customer service while saving you time and money and creating a memorable experience. You can get a free trial along with a very special offer over at abbyconnect.com and mention the Abundant Accountant podcast when you set up your trial, and really allow them to grow your firm with a professional, reliable, and personable receptionist team from Abbyconnect. Once again, head on over to abbyconnect.com, mention the Abundant Accountant podcast, and you'll get your free trial set up. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant podcast, where all accountants come to learn all the ways to grow your firm. And when you're in doubt, I am here to help you out. So if you're ready to learn and ready to grow your firm, then you're in the right place to sharpen your skills and increase your revenue. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant podcast. If you're one of those accounting professionals and you feel frustrated and stressed trying to get the right clients, and it seems like you have no control over who you work with and don't really know how much you can truly charge, or it probably looks like charging a monthly fee is definitely out of the realm of possibilities, it is not your fault. I know that nobody is training you on how to fix these problems and connect the dots. And up until now, only my high-end clients have had access to this type of information. So I'm very excited about sharing this with more of you, and I am offering a complimentary coaching session to discover the possibilities that you have within your firm if you want to get to some of those truths. So you can explore more and head on over to theabundantcall.com. That's theabundantcall.com. And if you're sick of the way it's been going and want to jump 2 feet in and discover all the possibilities, because doing what you're doing, you're pretty much sick of it and there's no more, and you feel like you have zero confidence when it comes to sharing the fees you really want to charge a client, and you don't believe ever doubling your firm revenue is possible by lowering the volume, then this free coaching session is for you. I only work with 5 accountants at a time. So if you've been in business at least 2 years, you own your own firm, head on over to theabundantcall.com. And today we have a very special guest. Our special guest today on The Abundant Accountant is Andrew Royer. He began his journey at KPMG, which, if you don't know what that is the largest accounting firm in Canada, actually, where the structure of the firm fed his entrepreneurial spirit right away. A growing family inspired him to expand his focus to bookkeeping, where he could apply his entrepreneurial mind to help fellow business owners thrive. So a couple quick unique facts about Andrew. He has a diploma in computer information systems, very unique and interesting. He spent 13 years writing accounting software before switching to accounting. He probably got those thoughts when he was writing the software, right? I'm surprised, Andrew, it took you 13 years. He is a certified CPA, a CGA accountant. I'm going to guess that's a Canadian something. He's a bookkeeper and soon-to-be certified Profit First professional. Yay for Mike McAllowitz. So let's welcome Andrew to the show.
Thanks for having me, Michelle.
Thank you so much for being here. And I love the topic that we're talking about because this is the Abundant Accountant podcast. And I think a lot of times some people, we might chase revenue and clients and trying to grow our top line at the expense of our bottom line. So that's what we're talking about today with Andrew. Before we start, Andrew, can you share with everyone like where you live, what kind of firm you have, just a little background? I've already done your intro, but I think it's important that it comes from you directly.
Okay, yeah. So we're in Langley, BC, Canada. We have a firm. It's a profit first bookkeeping firm primarily. We also do tax and other accounting and consulting. Mm-hmm. And it's me and two bookkeepers that work for me.
Got it. So total 3.
That's correct.
Awesome. Well, I'm very excited, like I said, to hear your stories, because someone listening, you might feel like you're like that Andrew, did you ever feel like you were a hamster on a wheel and you just kept spinning in circles and it's like you never could get off of it?
Yeah, I think every one starting out feels that way.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're at the right spot. So for you, can you share a little bit about, how you learned to, and what you did to implement, and some personal stories about really chasing after every single client that came your way, off for the revenue, right? At the expense of your bottom line, and some of the big things that you learned. I know we're going to talk about 3 of them today, but what do you think is the most important one that you wish you would have known when you first started your firm?
Well, I think this is the advice that everybody gives after they've come out on the other side. And so I don't know if it's possible to learn this the easy way, but because when we first start off, we're always taking on every single client that we can get. And everyone will tell you not to do that. But when you're at a point where you have to, feed your family, you got to bring money in, it's very hard to say no to every client that comes your way. So I think that would have been the biggest advice, would be to try and figure out exactly what it is that you want to do, the type of client that you want, and make sure that you're going after those clients and not just everybody that comes to see you.
Right. And like you said, once you come out the other side, it's easier said than done now. So what do you think would have had you do that back when you were first kind of getting going than, now that you see it now? Because everyone says that. So clearly it's not working, right? Because you just take on whoever's calling you. What do you think would have you say no to a client today? So, someone listening could say, hey, you know what? I know there's a better client around the corner, even though you can't see it right now. And it doesn't even seem fathomable that that's even a possibility.
Ideally, if you could set yourself up in a situation where you don't need every client that comes in, and I know it's not always the case, but especially if you're starting this and you have a spouse that makes more money, you can do it right. Know that the money's going to come eventually. But really, a lot of these clients that when you're first starting, you're panicking, you're not really confident in yourself. You feel like you have to take on everything. You just have to learn from other people's experience and know that these clients can end up costing you a lot more money in the long run, rather than bringing in the money that you think they're going to.
Yeah. So share with us a story on how you learned your lesson, that it costs you more in the long run.
All right. Well, at this point in the business, I've been probably a year or so in, maybe almost 2 years in. And I had somebody, it was actually another bookkeeper that was well known in the industry, that was he had some clients that he was going to get rid of that he had outgrown. And due to his reputation, I just took those clients on kind of no questions asked. Mm-hmm. And I mean, even at that point, even if I brought them on, I did very little investigation into the clients before I said yes. If the client was interested in me, I signed them on. And then I've been given the advice to do the value pricing, so I wasn't doing hourly billing at all. And I started the business with value pricing right from the beginning. And I'm a firm believer in doing what you're going to do.
Do what you say you're going to do.
Exactly.
Got it. Yeah.
And there's a few clients like, yeah, absolutely. This is your fixed cost. This is exactly what it's going to take to set you up. And then I start looking at these clients, and in some cases, there were years behind. They haven't filed their taxes. They had these amounts in their clearing account that just didn't make any sense, things on the balance sheet that they didn't understand. And the more I kept looking into it, the more I realized how much of a mess these books were. And here I was that I've agreed to do this for that one particular client. I'm charging him $500 a month, and I told him that there would be no cost to kind of clean up the books, because I assumed that the books were going to be clean.
Oh God.
Yeah. So when we finally got it done, which I think it was almost 2 years, took us 2 years to clean it up. And when we finally got it done, I ended up I actually sent him a $6,000 invoice, and then with a $4,000 discount on it. And that was one of about 9 clients that we took on, and they were all very similar situations. Some we still haven't fixed yet.
Wow. So if you discounted 4,000, so you really collected 2. So if you had 9 clients and you lost 4 on all, you basically were in the hole about 36,000. Did I get my math right?
I don't have my calculator in front of me, but I'm sure that's right.
Close enough, right? So I think this happens a lot, right? And you probably are listening like, oh my God, that happened to me too. What did you do, Andrew, to rectify this moving forward, where you've made changes in your process and you've done things a little different in order for you not to be surprised by the mess that took you 2 years to clean up?
Right. Yeah. So for all new clients, if any prospect that comes to us, we have what we call a deep dive database review.
Okay.
And we actually charge a fee for that. So we get paid for that work in itself, because it takes us a lot of work to go through the books just to see where they need improvement.
What do you charge for that?
It's a $500 fee.
Okay.
And first of all, what that's helped to do is weed out some of the clients that don't value our service. They see that the $500 is too much and they go somewhere else, and we're happy to let them do so. Because what's going to happen if they can't afford the $500 for us to do that investigation? They're certainly not going to be able to afford the fee that we're going to quote them to clean it up.
Right.
And there's value in it too, is even if they decide to keep their existing bookkeeper or they decide to go with somebody else, we provide them with a report that tells them what needs to be fixed. So if they find us to be too expensive after that, they're welcome to take that report and bring it to another bookkeeper to make those corrections. So there's value in the report of itself.
So they're getting a deliverable of some sorts.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, got it.
But more importantly, from our standpoint, is then we now know what's the first thing that we're going to work on when we onboard that client. And so we need to make sure that those books are nice and clean before we start getting them into our systems and getting it going. And it makes us just profitable right from day one.
Yeah, and I think also not only profitable, but I think then you don't get mad at yourself, right? It's like that confidence piece you were talking about earlier, or just the lack of what to do. You've stopped the 36,000 and bleeding. So if you had 9 clients, you gave $4,000 discount, 9 times 4, 36. That's how I came up with it. It's like not only that, so you're getting rid of people who don't even see the value in a $500 report to you, but you're also stopping the bleeding on driving yourself crazy. Because I don't know, how do you feel, Andrew? You said you still have a few you haven't even cleaned up yet. Like, how do you feel doing the work when you know that basically you didn't get paid enough, but you want to do what you promised in the beginning, right? And so now on all new clients, I love the deep dive review fee. That's a great idea if you're not doing that right now. But how does it make you feel doing the work now versus on the clients that, you still haven't even cleaned up their mess yet?
Well, it's night and day difference. The ones that still aren't done keep me up at night, versus the ones that we're doing now. I feel like they're getting a much better service, and I feel better about it. And like you said, like you finish the work, it's kind of deflating to say, okay, we finally got this done, and then here's my $2,000 invoice.
Right. It's just like, so you feel deflated. Or if someone's not willing to pay your $500 deep dive review fee, they don't see the value in you either in that point. So it's like you don't even need to waste your time with them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And what else have you done to, since I know that we're really focusing on, obviously, we don't want to chase the revenue at the expense of profit, that you have implemented in your firm that have been, like you said, night and day. And it doesn't keep you up at night, but it actually inspires you and awakens you to get up every day and really help some of these clients.
Yeah. So some of the things that we've created systems, and when I say created, I actually, because of the situation that I was in. Can
you share the situation you're in? Because you have a big family, you had a lot going on.
Well, initially I got into bookkeeping on my own. I was working at a Big 4 firm, and we had 2 children and 1 on the way. In Canada, they were working on merging the 3 designations into one. So there was a deadline to get my accounting designation done before the merger happened. Otherwise, I'd have to start all over again. Okay. And then going through long hours at a tax firm and having a baby on the way was just a little crazy. So I had somebody reach out to me, and I figured after taxes and after childcare, I was making $500 a month. So somebody reached out and asked me if I knew a bookkeeper that I could recommend, and I asked them if they'd be willing to pay $500 a month. And that's how I got my first client, got my start, finished my designation. But then after that, I was thinking I was going to take things a little slow, maybe work on it. We bought a fixer-upper. I was going to work on that and add a few clients. Then I found out we were pregnant with our fourth, and my wife wanted to take a year off again. I tried to talk her out of that. And so here I was with essentially one client, and I really needed to grow that business before she went on maternity leave so that she could take the year off. So I had to get my pedal to the metal.
And how'd you get your pedal to the metal? Because, I think a lot of this, and for people listening, we can't always predict what our future is going to entail, right? Like for those listening, you might have dealt with the pandemic that went on if you live anywhere in the world. And we have all these, and your wife saying, hey, I want to take a year off. And now you're like, how do I get from one client to, how many do you have right now, Andrew?
We've got about 30 right now.
Got it. Okay. So you went from one client to 30 and you put your pedal to the metal. What did you do? Because you said you created systems in order to do that. So can you share a little bit about that?
Well, so one of the things, I got a mentor. That was like the very first thing that I did.
How much did you invest in a mentor?
I did not. I was actually I switched from being a software developer to an accountant. And before I worked at a Big Four firm, I worked for a small bookkeeping firm.
Yep.
And so I went back to them and asked if they'd be willing to mentor me. And so that was she's a good friend of mine, and she just helped me out. And I just kept picking her brain on how to get to where she was. It took her 12 years to get to where she was. And I'm like, that's great. I need to do it in 6 months. So I wanted to ask her what she had done, and I just kept picking her brain and trying to follow in her footsteps.
Where did she get to in 12 years? Can you share?
Well, she's gone even further now, but she, I don't know all the details, but she had quite a few clients. She'd been doing quite well. And then since then, her husband has come on. So, I mean, the business has been, business has been growing leaps and bounds.
That's awesome. Okay. So you got there in 6 months' time instead of 12 years.
Yeah, well, more or less. I mean, I think maybe I didn't quite get to where she was, but I definitely got a lot closer, and I got to where I needed to be. And so I knew that I didn't have time to develop the systems from scratch. And what she had been doing is she had just looked into a new bookkeeping system, and she recommended that I buy it. So that's what I did, is I bought the system so that I had something to start with. And then I just kept tweaking it to customize to what I wanted to be able to do.
Mm-hmm. But I think also when we were talking earlier, you customized it with your team. So they felt a part of it as well, which then minimizes the amount of work you get to do, which again, then increases profitability. Correct?
Right. Yeah. So when I first got the system, I started using it for myself, but not to its full potential. There was a lot of things I just kept inside my head, which is a mistake. But then when I ended up growing and needed to hire team members, I brought them on, and I just had them, the things that weren't quite working, I told them what was in my brain and got them to change the systems themselves.
Yeah. No, and I think like these are the things that we need to be aware of, right? When you're navigating kind of the dangers of some rapid growth and the bumps in the road that you might find. So for you, what I'm hearing is developing the systems up front, but you didn't have the time to do that. So you bought it and invested in it, and that made your life a lot easier. And then also implementing, how many clients did it take you, Andrew, to figure out that you needed to review the client's books before quoting any fees?
Not very quick. I think the first few clients, if there were any issues, they were minor, and I didn't feel so bad that maybe I lost a few $100. But I just felt like, I'll just get better at quoting. I'll get better at quoting. I only really learned a lesson when I onboarded like 9 clients in a short period of time, and most of them were a mess. So at that point, I just realized, essentially I blew one of my staff's wages on that mistake.
Well, yeah, that was 36 grand about if it's dollars or Canadian, I don't know what it was, but 9 times the $4,000 discount. Yeah, that's That's huge. And that's a great way to look at it, right?
Right.
So, okay. And I know that, you're a profit first professional. So I always like to bring that up, and you focus on value pricing. So as it relates to really increasing your revenue, not at the expense of profit, can you share with people, like, what do you do about your pricing and how do you figure that out, and what's really worked well for you?
In terms of pricing?
Yeah, your value pricing and, your profit first engagements.
Yeah. So when I first started the business, I always wanted to have a focus on, I wanted to be able to help other businesses to become profitable, but I mostly just spoke lip service to that. And my pricing was more based on, when I first started out too, the pricing was based on compliance. And I looked at what other people were charging, and then I just slowly kept creeping my price up when I saw the quality of the books that were coming out of other bookkeepers that I was taking over for. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until, like, when I got into the profit first consulting, then I was able to double my fee for the clients that were having the profit first services.
Got it. So what are you charge? What's the ranges now for someone who's like, well, what should I charge? It's always a discussion here at the Abundant Accountant podcast.
Well, it's always a hard question to ask. I mean, it's a hard one to answer, because it's, what do you offer? And so in order to do value pricing, you have to really look at, what is the competition offering? What are you offering in comparison to that? I know there's a lot of bookkeepers that I talk to, they don't charge less than $500 a month. I actually have clients that are $250 a month that are some of my more profitable ones. But they're not getting the full value of some of the other clients that are, $1,500
more, right? Yeah. $1,500. Yep. Okay. Got it. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that you've learned over the years, for someone who wants to, I guess, prevent the dangers of rapid growth in their firms and how to navigate that, or really how to not chase the revenue at the expense of their profits?
Right. I think that's the key is, so when I first started, I needed to replace my wife's income so that she could take a year off. So really what you're looking at is, you need that profit. I needed to make enough money in profit in order to replace her income. But the problem is, then you start thinking about, well, how do I do that? I need more clients.
Right.
So then you start chasing revenue. So if I get more revenue, I'll make more money. And that's a lie. Right. Because you start chasing after these clients and you're like, okay, well, I don't want to bring clients into my house, and I'm going to get more clients if I get a really expensive office space. So I buy that office space or rent that office space. And now I've now just taken all my profit and I'm now paying it in rent, but I'm getting more clients. So great, my revenue is going up, but now I'm getting too busy. So I hire a staff, and now you're giving all that money to your staff, and it continues to grow. You continue to increase your expenses when your revenue goes. And if you're not focused on increasing your profit, then you get caught in this trap of, grow, and spend. And so it wasn't until I actually started putting profit first into my own business that I noticed that, I needed to change the focus and look at the bottom line. And obviously the top line is important, but if your spending is growing faster than your top line is growing, then you're not getting anywhere. You're on that hamster wheel that you talked about at the beginning.
Yeah, the spending cannot be faster. And I'm all about profitability because, it's how do you grow your revenue and keep your expenses the same or have them decrease, right? And look at ways, and we've talked about this, Andrew, on other podcasts, of upselling and really thinking about your current clients and what other services that you can offer to them to increase the value to your top line revenue from that existing clients. That's not going to add an additional expense, which will then cut into your profits.
Yeah, exactly. So we started at the beginning, and I really wanted to make sure that we had quality books and that we were explaining in detail to the clients, like, how to read their financials and make sure that they had financial clarity. And we wanted to create a profitable strategy for them. So when I first started out, I got those first two down pretty quick, but I couldn't figure out, I was mostly just playing lip service to the profit. So it wasn't until I added that additional service, which increases the revenue and just made me feel better about the service that I was offering. And I was doing what I intended to do right from that beginning. So,
oh, that's awesome. So was it 6 months is how long it took you to replace your wife's income with your additional profits For her to take the year off?
She did take the year off. I don't know that I made the amount of debt that we went into less. Let's put it that way. I didn't quite replace her income, but we were able to manage through, and this is now our youngest is now almost 3. So
yeah, this is years ago, but I think a lot of, maybe it's not a kid. I've had a client where, their significant other has gotten cancer. Like there's always something that will pop up, right? But again, how can you utilize your current business in order to replace that loss of income from maybe your significant other? And it's a beautiful way you did that. Is there anything else, Andrew, that you'd love to leave the listeners with, as it relates to chasing after their revenue at the expense of their profits, that you learned that you're like, I have to share this right now?
Most of the things that we've already shared, I don't think, like, the systems were important. The focusing on the profit was important. Doing that thorough review, all of those things. And I think just having confidence in yourself, investing in yourself, doing what you do best. Sorry, one last thing that just came to mind is that when I started to hire, I was hiring staff to do the billable work because I didn't want to spend money on my staff unless they were bringing money in. And that, I think, was a mistake as well, because what happens is that I had the most experience in the business. I'm the company's best employee, and I was doing more and more and more admin work, and I'd hired less experienced people to replace the work that I was doing. So if I had to do it again, I would have started with hiring an admin staff to replace that work so that I could do more and more higher end stuff.
Right. Where you're focusing more on the consulting work, the profit first work, the higher value. I did a podcast and it was like, I don't remember, 4 buckets, 4 categories, right? You're either doing the admin work, you're doing the managerial work, you're doing one other bucket, I can't think of it right now, and then you're doing the very high level consulting work. And if we spend our time in that bucket each week, at least, 30-40% of your time, then your revenues will be high and your profits will be high. Like you said, you could offload that admin work that is pretty lower value since you're your most valuable employee. And I think a lot of people listening have that same feeling or same setup with one person or maybe 1 to 5 people, and really thinking about where are you best utilizing your time so you're not trading your time for dollars.
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Andrew, so much for, sharing your story on how you replaced your wife's income and that she was able to take off. And now you have 4 little ones and you can't even make it on a hike like we were talking about before the show started. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant Podcast. It's always great to hear from other accounting professionals how you've implemented so we can reduce the amount of time it takes to really improve everyone's profitability here so they can have the life of abundance as well. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
What an amazing episode with Andrew today. I just want to thank each of you for being here, listening. We're, I think, about 2 years into this podcast, and it's been a while since I've requested a written review. So I would love to make a request and ask each of you if you could take 20 seconds to go to Apple Podcast and leave a written review of your biggest takeaway from the whole podcast, or even maybe from today's show with Andrew. How has this helped you? How has this helped you in your conversations with your clients? And, if you've increased your revenue, hey, I want to know about that too. And lastly, again, if you want to explore what it would be like working together, then I would love to talk to some of you. So if you're sick of the way things have been going, you want to jump 2 feet in and set fear to the side, discover what's possible, because what you've been doing just really isn't working and it's not satisfying your personal life and your career. And if you don't have that much confidence when it comes to sharing your fees with confidence to your clients and charging truly what you want and not being cheapo or giving a discount, or you don't believe you could actually double your firm revenue, then my complimentary coaching session is for you. I only work with 5 accountants at a time. So let's explore what's possible together. You can learn more if you head on over to theabundantcall.com. Thank you all so much for joining us here today on the Abundant Accountant Podcast. It's always an honor to be here and so much fun to meet people like Andrew and others. And I would be grateful in advance if you could leave a written review. I will see you in the next episode.